Hello, GitOpsians. We figured out why I have technical difficulties, so that's why we're a little bit late today. And it's because I updated Firefox, and now our streaming software doesn't want to work with Firefox, so I had to go back to Chrome. And let's see how my CPU performs, because I'm pretty much due for a tech refresh at this point.
Well, if we hear the fan kicking up, we'll know what it is.
Yeah, no, and the computer and the microphone are really close together, so you will literally hear that fan if it decides it needs to take off and go to the moon.
Nice.
In terms of announcements, I don't know. I have no idea what's happening in the GitOps world right now, to be honest with you. I think people pretty well know I made a bit of a change in my, wow, my dog is going to try and eat my cat right now. That's about to happen, and you all will get to hear it. Oh, get out. Why are you even here? No, stop it. Yeah, getting a 90-pound German Shepherd to stop paying attention to a cat is exciting. Oh, thank you. Out. He's gone. Life is better. Working from home is wild. Oh my God, why are you back?
Isn't it funny, like like when you're single, you never think, you hear all these other parents and people are like, whatever with their kids, right? Oh, Johnny ate the crayons again, and you're like, man, that's crazy. I'll never hear that. And then you have kids and you're like, dude, stop. Why are you eating that? What are you doing?
Yeah, kids and pets. I guess I'll show him off since he's here. Dakota, come here. Up. Come on. Up. All the way. Come on. Up. I know you're old. Do it anyway. Up. Wow. You should see him. His tail's wagging. He's acting like he doesn't know what up means.
Yeah.
Up. There we go.
Oh, nice.
This is
he's an old man.
He is an old man. Don't talk about it. That's sad.
That's awesome. How old is he?
He is 10. Yeah, 10. He turned 10 in June. And so for a German Shepherd, that's a pretty good age.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And he's being a real brat right now because he's decided he wants to annoy this cat. The cat is ancient, by the way. She's 14, so he really needs to not be annoying her.
That's awesome.
Anyway,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we're just gonna sit here and do this, I guess, while we stream. Like he's just gonna be here.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So, oh my God, you're so heavy. Right. So, announcements. I don't have any. I know that the GitOps Con, or not GitOps Con, excuse me, the Argo Con co-located event for KubeCon. I know that they put out the agenda last couple of days.
Yep.
And that's what I got. So, Tal asks if we're talking Tekton today. No, we're not talking Tekton today. We are going to talk about continuous integration. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in like the conceptual terms and so forth. And kind of the reason for that is I want to kind of tee up to you all here in our lovely audience about kind of what we're going to be doing for the next several episodes in GitOps Guide. So what we're going to be doing for the next several episodes in GitOps Guide is we're going to be talking about how lots of types of software are like built, shipped, and delivered. And so we're going to be talking about what continuous integration looks like and what delivery looks like outside of like cloud native environments a little bit. So we'll talk about it inside as well. I've got some people working on getting us some of the folks from the Kubernetes community to talk about Prow. And wow, this is levels of excitement from this dog. He's acting like he's way younger than he is. So we've got that coming up. I'm working on kind of scheduling the dates for everybody. Sit down. I am going to have to get rid of him. He is a whole problem right now. Yeah. I don't know who let him in.
I have to change rooms with my dogs. Otherwise, the baby Roddy, she'll jump up on me. Yeah. And then the old man Roddy, he just kind of like, because my Roddy's 13. And so he like comes over and he's just like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
Blind, you can't see anything.
Yeah, I actually like to do usually with the dogs, I call it the idiot rotation, which is really unkind. It's I let one of them in at a time for like the family time and all the pets and all the cuddles and all the loves, because otherwise they get jealous because there's 4 of them. And then, I rotate it out. So like which one's in, which one's out. But I don't know who I'm a very spoiled person who has someone to help me clean my house once a week. And I think she let him in because he's old and he likes to be in. But my door to my office wasn't closed, so now we have a like hyperactive giant dog who can take down furniture if he's not paying attention, and he will be not paying attention because he does not know where his butt is at any time.
Oh yeah.
Um,
You lost containment. Yeah, and you've got furniture walking around. Yep, I get it.
Exactly. Like, these bookshelves could come down on me if he gets too excited like that. It could be very bad. Like, I could die on screen. So I might have to deal with him real quick. Why are you?
Well, if you wanna handle him for a second, there's a couple announcements that I saw. If you want me to just go over those, if you wanna.
Yes, that would be great while I run his butt outside. And I apologize, like, to everybody for the lack of professionalism here, but I don't want him taking my furniture down. So I'll be right back.
Yep, cool. Yeah, so I think it was last week or maybe earlier this week, Dev Spaces. We announced it on the Ask an OpenShift Admin live stream yesterday, but Dev Spaces updated to 3.8, and I just saw an announcement about the migration toolkit for virtualization had just upgraded to, I think it was V2.5. So there's some good stuff coming out. If you didn't catch the stream, this is a shameless plug for the Ask an OpenShift Admin stuff that we did yesterday, because we had some of the team come on from Red Hat Consulting that's been doing some work with Dev Spaces and Ansible and OpenShift, and they did a demo of basically onboarding a user into an environment where they're using nothing but Dev Spaces and Ansible, to update the OpenShift cluster, to put this user out there and set them up out in GitLab or GitHub, and make sure that they have access to the repos and stuff like that they need. So if you get a chance to check it out, Dev Spaces is a really cool project. I didn't realize how far along it is. So yeah, give it a shot. Give it, kick the tires. You can go to learn.openshift.com or try.openshift.com, and you should be able to get access to it there and play around.
That's really cool. I love Bluetooth earbuds because I got to listen to all of your announcements while I went and did my things.
Nice.
The dog is now in his kennel and he's chewing on his lovey because dogs.
Yeah, I get it.
But that's fun. He's immortalized now forever on YouTube. He's this one will go viral as a YouTube sensation where my German Shepherd crashed the stream, right? That's how that works.
That's right. He'll have his own TikTok channel here soon. So.
Oh God, yeah. I hope not. I'm so old. I swear. I look at people. I don't get TikTok. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's just you know what though? It's ironically because I'm a YouTube streamer. I hate watching videos. I watch like zero YouTube.
Yeah. It's taking me. I don't have the attention span, so that's my problem. Like if I sit there for too long, like I'm the kind of person that if I'm stagnant for too long, I'm dozing off. Yeah. I gotta move.
Zoning out. I'm a real big fidgeter. I think if you go back and watch a lot of the videos, you'll see like I do a lot of this. Mm-hmm. It's keeping my brain engaged because I don't know. Like I definitely have something with that. But anyhow, so what are we doing? We're talking about continuous integration. I actually have some slides because I talk about continuous integration all the time. And we're going to talk a little bit about test-driven development because for the next several episodes, it's going to be about how software like is delivered across the realm, right? Across the galaxy. Why did I not even go straight there? Obviously, I'm under-caffeinated today.
You found it, though.
I found it. What kind of German Shepherd? I don't know. A black one? This dog does not have papers. None of my dogs are all like adoptees and rescues. So if you just back up, and he's big and he has a white face because he's old. And if you missed it, just rewind later. He's furry. Also, he's got a lot of fur. He's not woolly though. He's not. He's like kind of in between. But anyway, so yeah. I have a lot of dogs though. I have that German Shepherd. I have a German Shepherd Husky mix. I have a Malamute Husky Labrador mix. She's fun. And I have a Shiba Inu who is not really mine. He's been living with me for the last year, but I've been getting dog support for him. But he's going home next week, which I'm really excited about because as much as I love that dog, I didn't want 4 dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a dog that's like that too. He's a pug mix. He was staying for the weekend, and that was 2.5 years ago. And he's ours now. He was abandoned. Somebody threw him out of the car.
Oh yeah, no. So unfortunately, I don't want to get into like my friend's business, But there were extremely extenuating circumstances that required my friend to need to store his dog in a safe location for a period of time. And so we were that safe location. Unfortunately, those circumstances have resolved, and he gets to take his dog back. And he has been visiting this whole time and taking his dog to the vet and the groomers and all the things that you could ever possibly expect from somebody who loves their dog. So I really am very happy for them both, because I know that he misses his real family. But yeah, so that's great news. Very excited about that. I'll be back down to 3 dogs next week. Right. Continuous integration. I swear, folks, I'm awake. You remember that my Twitter handle is caffeinated integrations? It actually only works if the caffeine exists. And it doesn't. Not in sufficient quantities this morning, afternoon. What even time is it? So I'm going to go. Oh, I forgot to just screen share with the new browser. Ooh, let's see how this works.
It's going to work. It's going to be amazing.
It should just work.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. I am not a long distance runner. The 4 dogs needing a lot of exercise. I have a good sized yard. And the thing is when you have a pack of dogs, the reason for keeping a pack of dogs is they actually exercise each other. So they spend several hours a day playing and wrestling and chasing and doing all of the dog things. And then I get to take them on nice, calm, leisurely walks because they're not completely over energized. Actually, all of my dogs, including the Shiba Inu, are subway trained. So I even used to take them when I worked in an office. I would actually take them on the subway, and I would take them into the office with me. And so I spent a lot of time on making my dogs like as close to service dog like levels of training as you could get. And so they would even that big guy used to ride the subway, and everybody loved him because he was big.
That's awesome.
So yeah, but he's too old for the subway now. That would bug him too much. But when he was younger, he didn't mind it. But yeah, so that's how I do it, is keeping a pack, training it like a pack. I could talk about the theory of dog training for forever. That could end up being this entire episode if you let me. So we're not going to do that. Ping me some other time, and I will tell you all about dog training. I actually just sent one of my colleagues videos on how to train your dog for calm. Because one of my dogs, theoretically I can stack treats on his paw, but he actually really hates it when I do that. So he'll let me get like 2 or 3 treats high, and then he'll yank his paw back. But he won't eat the things until I tell him to, which is just him being like exactly that much of a jerk.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. I could talk about my dogs all day. I have dogs, I have cats, I've got kids. It's mayhem over here. It's a lot to talk about. Don't get me started. Right. So I think I've said this on the stream before, but for folks who don't know, I actually spent like the majority of my career in quality engineering. And quality engineering and reliability engineering have a lot in common. But one of the things that I spent a lot of time on, and I was just debugging something on one today, is I spent a lot of time on continuous integration systems, right? This is a place where I've spent a huge amount of my career. And so continuous integration systems, we talk about Tekton. I like Tekton because when you get Tekton going in OpenShift and you've got the nice real, like, this is what step I'm on and this is what I'm doing, and like that whole visual set. I really like it because it just makes things so much easier to see through. GitLab has like really similar functionality. A lot of the CI systems, you can kind of expect a pretty much like base standard of functionality from a CI system at this point, right? But so building a CI system is like CI and CD used to be like all one thing, right? If we think about Jenkins, or like the way we would daisy chain Jenkins jobs together, right? Okay, we do this one, and then it does this one, and then this one, and then right. So kind of doing all that. CI CD used to really be like one thing, and so we've created like the way things have evolved with the microservice environments. Like CD has kind of become its own specific thing, and then the GitOps has evolved and everything, right? And so CI is still, it's like still that really big, important first half of the thing, though, right? You don't really need, like, if you don't have CI, what are you doing with CD, right? You're not doing one without the other. You might do CI without CD, actually. You really, but I don't. It's a reason it comes first. even though it's not alphabetical. So CI is it's such an interesting thing. And I was talking to one of my friends here at Red Hat, and she's over in RHEL, and we actually started talking about, I was like, how is, I guess you don't do GitOps with, with something like a Linux like kernel, right? But I was like, how is RHEL like, what is like the involvement with Git and testing, and like, is there a concept of continuous delivery with those types of things, or at least like continuous integration? And the answer to that was yes. And she started showing me some of the tools and the way they test things and so forth. And some of those things are, I think, internal only. And I was like, oh dang, I don't think I can talk about any of this stuff. I got to figure that out. But I that was how we got here, right? With I want to talk about, like, we talk about CI in like burst and like fits right across here, because it's such a tightly coupled and related thing to GitOps and continuous delivery. I was like, let's do a little, Johnny, we were talking over Slack, right? I was like, let's do like a little bit of a series about this, and let's actually look into how this is, what this looks like in spaces outside of the cloud, because we're here to be nerdy about interesting things and to learn interesting things. And I just kind of want to take a few weeks and branch out away from a little bit of what we've been doing this whole time and get into the CI. So as we kind of like, I've given talks about CI a lot. Like, this is slides from a talk I gave, and I copied these slides from a different talk I gave a year prior. And like, this is a make file, right? And so a lot of, when we talked about like, I think it was Getting GitOps, that episode with oh my God, I hate saying his name because I'm really bad at it. Vanya? Ooh, I'm so not good at this name. It's so difficult for me. But he was really cool because he's been in the industry a long time. Back when software delivery was, I got to go take this, this disk and drive it to the client location to install it on their servers, right? Like that was like, so we talked about it there. And so my, entry into the industry is a lot newer than that. I would FTP. We would FTP code onto the servers, which were like the room on. Not even SFTP, by the way. Please note that I did not mistakenly exclude the secure. That that was just not there. It wasn't that, maybe it was there, but it wasn't used. And again, this is stuff that was local. But yeah, so FTP, FTP'd the new code to release it. But this is like just a little. I made this makefile for a web app, and I just updated it to be current because you could actually run these things and it would work. And of course, mad props to anybody who gets the reference in the echo. So kind of like, but this is basically what happened, right? We did some stuff, and then we are before SSH was. I'm sure SSH existed. We just didn't use it. Like, I don't know what to tell you about some of the startups I've worked for, but I've got some interesting stories, and I think some of that comes from having worked for very, very small companies doing things in very interesting ways. But that's another. We could spend a whole different hour on that.
That's right.
So the right. So like the way I kind of have always phrased this is we basically just kind of we would do something like these make files or whatever. And basically we just, I have to do some bash things. So we start automating our bash. Then we get some bash scripts and so forth. And at this point, a lot of CI is really just like bash orchestration. That's what I call it. It's bash orchestration. We still have to do it all with bash. We've just created like orchestration systems for our bash so that it does the things that we want. So that's kind of like how it started. And like, this is kind of like how it's going. So I actually borrowed the format for these slides from one of Red Hat's other slide decks. And I feel so terrible. I think I got it from Christian, but I think he may have got it from somebody else. So someone somewhere deserves a lot of credit for the slide formatting here, and that someone is not me, but I couldn't tell you who. And so I actually changed what they had a bit though, because they kind of just had it as one. And so you have this whole thing is the concept of continuous delivery, right? Like you've got all the steps, and you can look at continuous delivery as kind of an overarching concept, not just the delivery aspect or the GitOps aspect. And that kind of just is not really, it just depends on who you talk to, I suppose. But the continuous integration part is right. It's like build, test, do your security checks. If you have to do any lockdown procedures, anything like that, like any of those little steps that come into, creating the thing you want to release, creating the software package that you want to promote. And then a deployment to stage, another set of tests, and a deployment to production. And so a lot of times people continue like CI/CD, like you deployed to stage and like that's it, that's your CI/CD, and then production might happen on a less continuous cadence, going all the way to production. Sometimes, like I think Christian called it something like it's like a CI/CD ++. And there's kind of depending on like the who, the what, the where, the why, the how of your organization, like call yourself done at whatever makes sense for your team, and that's fine. So like I said, I spent a lot of time in the like CI space directly, right? I obviously do touch the CD space as well. But to a degree, a CI is a very living, breathing thing. Because you're probably making changes in your CI system actually at every release, right? For every release, you probably increased your tests. Right? There's probably something new in there. You might have fixed something. You might have improved something. Like that test block like continues to grow. You might refactor tests. You might change your testing. Most people use FTP didn't have a Unix background. I think that's accurate for the people who set up the way we develop or redeploy to production for that particular company, rHope9. And I'm just going to leave it at like I don't think that there was a Unix background involved from at least one of the persons. Major digression. So right, so you're changing things in your CI system a lot. And we actually were having like discussions on like what goes into a CI system, what makes for a good end-to-end test. Right, there's so many types of testing as well. You've got your unit test, your functional test, your regression tests, your integration tests, penetration tests, load, stress, etc. Like that's actually like a really big thing. And then security checks, maybe before the testing and maybe after the testing, maybe during the testing. A lot of modern CI systems, you can do a bunch of things concurrently, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So instead of it being like extremely procedural, like remember we talked about we used to be daisy chaining Jenkins jobs. Now you have, build pipelines, and the pipelines have tasks, and the tasks have subtasks, and you can kind of branch out some stuff. And in cloud native environment, right, you spin out multiple copies and do different things to each copy, right? And you can get a lot done in less time. But it always, what you are doing at every single, build test cycle, likely the build steps might be the same. Your test pieces, those are going to be changing a lot. And then the way you actually do like create the release package, whatever that might change. So there's one thing that I have done, and again with like more modern systems, it's kind of like so much easier to see. But in my CI systems back in the day, I always actually used to have steps where it would commit information about the CI system back into Git. So for example, if you wanted to understand how, like when a regression might have come in, you could actually see from the like a certain number of previous runs, and this depended on how much we wanted to store. I would always have the testing suites, for example, actually publish a report that was like stylized, and it would commit that report back to Git. So we didn't have to go into any systems or do anything. We just had to go look at Git and see what ran, when did it run, what passed, what failed. And so you could actually, it allowed you to narrow down like, okay, here's the first time that test failed. So this is probably the commit that broke this and that created this regression, right? So
and you can use that to go back and look and be like, okay, this was probably a one-off, right? Or maybe there was just like maybe there's a switch or something like that that went down in the network that was causing this blip for a day or two or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making something up. But like
yep.
over a period of time, you can go back and look and be like, okay, there's a reason for this, right? Go back, correlate that to any outages and stuff like that, or maybe there's something with the system going on. And like, oh, okay, yep, code's good, runs are good. Like it was just something. It was environmental, but we know it wasn't us.
Exactly. The problem with continuous integration in monolithic systems is sometimes why, while the pipeline was running, a new commit would come in that would have it actually all redeploy. So you could actually see CI like runs fail due to the fact that it was redeploying in the middle of the other system trying to do, or the last integration trying to do things. So that's always fun, and that starts getting into like, okay, great, now we can spin up multiple copies, and some of the orchestration gets more advanced, and so you actually will stop having some of those collisions in modern cloud CI systems. Because of the fact that you can be like, oh, okay, well, it's going to be a whole new, it's just going to be a whole new set of the application on the cluster, or what have you, VMs, or depending on your setup, right? But yeah, sometimes the failures would be just in monolithic systems where you just kind of everything ran all at one time, or it only deployed to one like environment that was never ephemeral and was always up. You could definitely have the environment redeploying in the middle of tests running. And because of the way that the systems were all like, it's just a series of callbacks to things that are going to run independently of without really true contextual knowledge. And that can still happen, right? It can still happen. But yeah, it's all these things are kind of running independently. They don't really have like knowledge of the other thing, which is a huge, it's kind of like a gap in CI technology. So that's kind of the
the way that we do it is we use I think pretty similar to what you're talking about, where you had like your code document come back up in a formatted way, where we use like color coding. So like if the deployment of an application failed, then it's red, right? Like it failed. It was the app itself.
mm-hmm.
But if it was something on like the infrastructure side, so maybe I was spinning up a cluster, and you can run OpenShift install 10 out of 10 times and it'll be fine one day, and then 9 out of 10 times it's fine. But there's always that one time. And so anything on the infrastructure side that gets hung up, it'll come back as like an amber color or something like that. And then if it goes all the way through, it's green, right? So we know it's good. So that way you kind of get that quick dashboard look at like, okay, hey, this is cool. And then anything red or yellow, you can dig in, go straight to the Jenkins job and take a look at that. Or it's quite nice. And when you need to report up to people like, hey, what are you guys doing? Or how's it looking? You can be like, oh, go check out the dashboard yourself, man. Like, there it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice.
And like I said, if you look at things like Tecton, right, they make you can visualize all of that now. Like it does it for you. Everybody's done something weird to get that kind of same outcome, but it ends up being a very like common like experience. I did this thing to make it obvious when there was a problem or when there was not a problem, and to identify where the problem happened as fast as possible. Like we didn't call it that at the time. We basically created observability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love this comment here. I'm going to pop it up. Wait, wake up. It's a Bluetooth mouse, so I have to wake it up every time. There we go. This. Because what ends up happening is you might have some of the testing happen really regularly, and then for the other types of testing, if load and stress testing happen even at all, they may be done on like an interval, and sometimes that interval is not automated. I will say I've seen like both ends of the spectrum where everything is done like as much as possible. At Red Hat, we have to do this, right? All of these things like that are mentioned here, we have to do all of them on everything all the time, especially the security and the vulnerability and all that other stuff, because like we need to be able to lock down things and guarantee what we are providing meets very high like regulation standards. So we definitely have seen like our spectrum of the things, and I've definitely seen the oh no, this is totally fine spectrum of things. I find that with in my opinion, with like most modern software architectures, because everything's microservice driven, that what your API does is really like the most important thing to test. And I ended up personally favoring, it's like even with things like things like UIs that are like, like React or something, right? What I end up favoring doing is actually doing a set of unit tests that like the developers build and maintain, and then a second set of unit tests that basically becomes the full automated test suite. So I don't actually like, and I used Selenium for like 10 years, right? I don't actually like tools like Selenium because actually tests built with them tend to be extremely brittle. You make a change to your UI somewhere and you could break all of the tests. Because the way it does selectors and so forth, it may not necessarily work. So what I have found that I prefer is I actually like to do a lot of the integration style testing and so forth. You can do mock objects into the unit testing and do a lot there. And then the thing that I think matters the most and is the thing I see done the least is negative test casing. Negative test casing is, I know how I expect this to work. Now I need to figure out how it fails. And that's where you start testing how your software responds to bad situations. So if you imagine, for example, that you have an integration with an Amazon API, and this is something I've actually seen, and they change the way their API like formats the response. They remove a field, they add a field or something like that, right? How do you want your software to behave when that happens? And are you testing for how it behaves if something like that happens? Are you and that can all be done. You can do it in the unit tests. And so that's where I like to put. I actually will put as much as like humanly possible into the unit testing side of things. And just basically like what happens when this gets something that's too long. What happens when this gets something that's too short? What happens when this gets something that's out of order? Is this system able to handle changes? Because sometimes even if you don't have a dependency on external API, sometimes developers within some of the same groups may make a change that seemingly shouldn't break anything, but actually can because of the way something they didn't directly touch during their feature improvement actually like works.
Well, if you remember not too long ago, OpenShift install, I think it was 4.12, like one of the early versions of 4.12. It might have been 4.13, I can't remember. But the AWS API had blocked ACLs on S3 buckets, like a certain type of ACL on S3. And it was just something that they made a change and like they announced it, and I don't know what happened. It's just it didn't make it into the OpenShift install binary. And so you couldn't deploy to AWS for at least about a day until they got the regression fixed. And then I think the next day or two, it was you can deploy it to US East 2. Like there was a specific region that you were kind of blocked out of. And then they did S3. I hate to pick on S3 because it's a cool project, but they did another thing where they changed their API where US East 1 has a different API than any of the other regions, because it was like that's the OG region, right? So it's got a lot of the old artifacts from like when they first stood up AWS. So like the way that you provision a bucket, they made it more restrictive. So like if you're going to be in US East 1, you have to use US East 1. You have to like use certain parameters and stuff like that, where everything else just kind of works. So it's not, what you're saying isn't a severe edge case. That's a legit reality that could happen pretty quickly.
Happens all of the time. All of the time. And it's things like a lot of times with companies, what'll happen is somebody creates the like AWS account, for example, but whatever email address is used, maybe that person doesn't exist anymore, or it goes to a bucket that nobody really checks. Like the way of actually reaching account owners is really, really difficult. And so sometimes, even with best efforts of like trying to tell people, hey, this is changing, we're deprecating this API, etc., they just don't get the notifications because it's not actually set up to reach a real human. Happens all the time, because with account ownership, it's really actually like, I don't think anybody has actually truly solved this well in a concept of somebody goes and actually owns this AWS account, or this is your account, or this Red Hat account, or whatever, right? And like, so they get notified, but they're not there anymore, or it's not a real email address, or like it's not great. So sometimes despite best efforts at communicating changes, it never reaches the developers. They don't know about it because they don't have the ownership permissions that would cause that, or that would allow them to see the change notification. So it's like, this is like an institutional problem. I think everybody struggles with this. I know that we've seen it here. It has happened to us at Red Hat, not knowing something. Some of the places my husband worked, like, it happened to them. They didn't know something. They couldn't do a very major function that they needed to be able to do to satisfy their customers. And it was a whole thing. And so it just happens. It just does.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to know what will happen to your software in those situations. How are you going to fail? Because if you're failing out with like a 500, that's pretty bad. So you need to be writing graceful failures into your software. You need to be checking for how software fails during the testing phase. And that's what negative testing means, is like, I tested that everything works the way I want it to work. Now I'm going to look for how it fails. Now I'm going to see what happens when I do bad things to my software. That's negative testing. It's testing the unhappy paths or the unexpected things that could happen. Maybe that a customer does, or, like I said, if you got an integration or a dependency that the dependency does. And with microservices and the way that we're cobbling together things from like a bunch of different sources. The way that we're doing that these days, these dependency changes are very, very real. They happen to everybody in ways that we didn't really experience with the monolithic architectures.
Yeah. Now, I've never heard it called negative testing before, but it's like, it makes sense, right? Like, especially when you give it context. It's like, okay, that really makes sense.
If you've never heard the term negative testing before, I feel very sad.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that there. I feel very sad. That is a term that people should know. Almost every single like serious, like day zero, sev zero, like CVE would have been caught with negative testing.
Yeah.
Like if you think about Heartbleed, what did they basically just threw a negative test at it to see what would happen. Oh, it turns out it gives me a bunch of stuff. All right, cool, right?
Rock on.
Yeah, rock on. Log4j, same thing. Same thing. Like negative testing is one of the most important aspects to creating security. Like today, you can get involved in the security of your company by adding negative test cases to your unit testing. Like just go do it now. That is how you today can make a positive security impact. That's a major digression though. Anyway, so the point on this thing is continuous, is that it happens all the time, and also that it is always evolving. So that's kind of really like the important takeaway here.
Real quick before we move on, because Angela's making some good points here. So Angela said that chaos engineering is really a great way to help you discover some of those negative tests, because you'll start seeing things that you can't imagine, and then testing for the negative case and the bad case. It's not just the happy path, but if there are inputs and failures and integrations and stuff like that. So just more of what you were saying. And then she also said that they use unhappy path instead of negative testing. So it could just be a verbiage thing. But yeah.
I actually heard unhappy path after I learned the term negative test casing. So language is defensive testing is really a good one. Ooh, I'm going to change the way I refer to this from now on. Defensive testing. Yes, that should be the industry standard. And so what do you call it? That was the slide I meant to go to, but whatever. We're actually, this gets us into exactly test-driven development, right? And so the process of defining your tests before you write your software. So I think a lot of us, right, when we're going through the process of writing some software, we take our desired outcome, right? And we break that down into kind of like steps to solve the problem. And then I don't know what your code looks like on the first pass, but my offensive testing, it's not hacking, it's offensive testing. That's what ethical hackers do. When my code, like the first pass is like very like the most simplistic, like chat GPT could write it, right? It's probably not going to be like super resource efficient or whatever. It's really just about getting something together that works. And one of the ways, like test-driven development, like figuring out like how you would define whether or not a step works, for me helps with the iteration, so that instead of getting I mean, I think we've all literally done this. Like, we write something and it's like 250 lines of code. And then after that, I was like, okay, this all works. And then when we go back and refine it, it gets down to like 90, right?
Yeah.
All the time. All the time.
It's always
I don't
a
know.
typo.
And there's always a typo in there somewhere too. So, you know, that kind of the process of saying, okay, so how would I, if I have a thing that needs to get to this outcome, what are my steps to get there, and how would I validate each step works? And so the idea of kind of like designing your unit tests ahead of actually writing your code, it just kind of helps you make sure that you're kind of getting all the things together up front, and then you actually start like really like executing those unit tests, and then start getting into like the builds and everything else like that, right? So test-driven development, like for me, test-driven development and continuous integration kind of were like simultaneous movements, like from the perspective of where I was when I started my career and what I was working on at the time. Those two things really like came up together. They were really coupled. And then like continuous delivery sort of came after. And then, you know, because CI and CD have been like so tightly coupled, but I think you can really like say like test-driven development is like a really big like cornerstone to why all of these things we're doing it. Is a lot about like wanting to have faith in what we were putting in front of customers. So I think that's it for my slides. I have like really bad architecture diagrams in here, which I literally just did because one, this presentation was done for some other group where I talked about other things. And two, because I'm really bad. I am not good at these, folks. I just, somebody who's great at diagrams needs to like teach me how to be good at diagrams, because I'm not. I don't know how to make things pretty.
Yeah.
But the point is that kind of finishes my slides.
Yeah, I with diagrams, I always try, like my old manager actually taught me this. Like he was telling a story, right? So he gets up on the whiteboard and he's like, "Hey, look, everything starts here." And so he would start at the bottom block and he'd write in what it was, and like have some little pointers up to the side, and then he's just gonna build up on top of it. And then I was like, "Oh, that's easy," because then you have this nice little block diagram and stuff like that, and it's got all these flows, and it's just like when you're looking at it and you heard all the context, you're like, "Oh, okay, I can tell that story. That's not bad." So
yeah,
that's how I learned.
A diagram. There's actually one of our distinguished engineers here. He actually does that in meetings. So he might make the diagram ahead of the meeting. This is his pro tip that he gave to me, and I'm going to share with you. He might make the diagram ahead of the meeting, and then during the meeting, he rebuilds the diagram live, so that it does that. It creates a story that he's telling that you visually follow along with. And then so from then on, everybody who was there or watches the recording of how the diagram came together, like it like kind of locks it in your head better. And he told me like he was not so great at them to begin with, and he just kind of practiced a lot and did that. But I've also seen people who use things like ScalaDraw to make super gorgeous.
Yeah, Adele. His stuff is awesome for hosted control plane. The dude, it's so good. Yeah.
I have seen his hosted control plane stuff. Yes.
Yeah,
I have seen his
good
stuff. Yeah, no, I don't have that skill.
Yeah, me either.
I just don't have it.
This is how I commit my stuff to memory though. Like if I'm going through and I'm learning a new concept, like I'll whiteboard it out and then I'll start like I'll try and explain it back. And yeah, I've got my library. And so like I'll go through, and if I get stuck, then I'll go back and review what that thing is. But that helps me commit it to memory. But then it also, like somewhere deep in the recesses of my brain, right, it kind of puts that map together. You know, so it's like, okay, I kind of see the flow, and then I can, when I'm going back and I'm thinking about it, I can think, you know, in that particular spot, you know. So
yeah, another good piece of advice I got was when you're doing a diagram, think about what is your data like in motion and what is your data like at rest, and then diagram them separately. And that also has been very helpful for me creating better diagrams. They're not gorgeous, but at least they're better.
Yeah.
So anyway, we could skip this slide. The point is it's a bad slide, but it was helpful for that presentation. And I don't care about any of these other slides. I already shared this unpopular opinion. And I think the slides duplicate. I know why they duplicated, actually. That was the whole thing. Anyway.
Well, and with the whole, like focus on supply chain and stuff like that, right? Like everything that you're talking about right now, I think everybody knew about it, right? It was one of those things where it's like, yeah, I know what CI/CD is. I know what, maybe not test-driven development for everybody, but I think by and large, everybody knew like the concepts of what was going on, but nobody really cared, not outside of the development team, right? They're like, okay, look, you got to build a server that's really great. That's awesome. But now that people have been getting owned, right, by some of these groups and some of the software that they put in, they're like, okay, I do need to pay attention to this. I do need to understand this. And I think that that's why it's becoming like a bigger topic for people that aren't necessarily developers, and why they are trying to understand it so that way they can, like, where is this happening at? Like, what does it mean when this happens and stuff like that? And so when, Jonny and Hilliary go to you and we say, hey, look, this is broke because of this, it's not just this, so what? It's like, okay, we got to get this done because I'm about to push this thing to production, and I don't want to push it out there with, a back door that's going to have all my customers get owned.
Exactly. And so here, the thing about it is, one of the reasons I want to touch on this is exactly the supply chain thing, because GitOps is getting a lot of attention for being able to know like what is in the software, right? Mm-hmm. GitOps gets a lot of attention for that. But you can get a lot of this information, this artifact collection, out of a CI system where CD and GitOps is not necessarily going to be an option. So things like the Linux kernel, like I was mentioning, is one thing we want to look at, and other things, right? So the CI systems and kind of the power of CI systems is GitOpsy enough, and I care about it enough that we're going to spend some time talking about it over the next few weeks. And so, like I said, I just wanted to spend like today kind of setting the stage for like, what is continuous integration? What belongs in a continuous integration setup? And we're going to start getting into some like real examples of this outside of like GitOps.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty excited about, because I was looking through, coming up with, you know this because you're both here and on Ask an OpenShift admin, coming up with like the set of topics and like, what are we going to talk about? What's going to be useful? What's going to be engaging? What's going to make, what's going to provide value, right? Because we're doing this we don't monetize these videos, right? We literally just do this to provide additional value to the community, to our customers, to other Red Hatters. And we do this in our spare time, right?
Yeah.
Spare time. Spare time.
It doesn't exist.
So coming up with this thing is hard. And, there's only so many times I feel like we can talk about Argo. So we're going to spend a few weeks on this. And then there are some cool and interesting things happening in Argo, but they're not going anywhere. We'll get back to those in a few months. I hope. Oh,
I'm sorry. Finish your thought. My bad.
I was gonna say, I hope that people stick around for this kind of like little mini series within a series, because I think we're gonna get to see some really cool things.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but like a lot of times when I've been talking to customers about GitOps or other Red Hatters and stuff like that, right? There's still that fundamental part of like source control management that people aren't familiar with, right? How do I and my team work on the same repository? How do we all commit different things at the same time and get that into the product without stomping on each other, right? And so it's very much an integral part of like GitOps and CI/CD and all that, right? Like it's if you don't know how to use Git, or if you don't know how to use the source control manager, like it's going to be very difficult to simultaneously work on the same project with other people, because you are literally going to be stomping on each other. So you'll be in the situation where, since Hilliary can type well, Hilliary would be typing. We'll send everything to her. She'll merge everything in and then push it up. It's just, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work well, and it doesn't work efficiently.
And there are many projects even here at Red Hat that don't use Git. They use other source control, and other source control systems have other feature sets. There's some similarities, right? There's some things that you can pretty much guarantee is going to exist in a source control system. But some of the concepts of branching strategies and so forth that we get familiar with in Git don't exist. And I think the RHEL space is like that. I believe that they don't use Git, or not all of the RHEL packages use Git. They use, it's not even Subversion. I forget, it's something else.
Okay, I was like, please don't be Subversion. Okay.
No, it's something else. But yeah, so this is why it's kind of an important thing. And we're talking a little bit more broadly. It's cool. I want to learn about this stuff more because it's like a nerdy thing I'm interested in, and I get to decide what we do on this stream. So you all get to do the nerdy things I'm interested in, because I did ask. I said, viewers, tell me what you want to see, and you know what I heard? Crickets. I heard crickets. So I made an executive decision here.
It's a good one, and I think like it again, not necessarily being GitOpsy like 100%. It's still part of the core, right? Like you have to know how to do this, and it's important. And even if you don't know, at least you get to look at some tools and like, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe I can make that work in my my organization.
Exactly.
Was it mercurial? Because Christopher Greed said mercurial. Mercurial. No, I can't speak.
Mercurial. I don't know what that was in reference to though, because we get these comments on a bit of a delay compared to when they send it.
SVN
so
or get or like mercurial is another one. It's
mercurial. Yes, that's a that is a source control thing. I forgot.
Yeah. That's old. Yeah.
Yeah, it is old. So I've only ever used Subversion and Git personally. And the times I've used Subversion was like while people like the teams were like mid transition to Git. So like it was very short periods of time. I could not tell you the Subversion feature set to save my life.
I took a Satellite 5 exam 100 years ago, and they had SVN on there, so you had to use Subversion to do like some of the package management stuff. And it's gross. I
don't even. It's been at least 10 years since I've touched Subversion. But yeah, people are using it. People are still using it. People are using other things. They're using closed source ways of doing source control. That's a thing. I don't know what everybody's doing exactly. Perforce. Actually, you know what? I actually was literally just looking at, because I was like, I wonder if I can find a really good. I did use CVS once. There we go. I was actually just looking. I was looking to see if I could find a diagram about Git branching strategies, because there was a book on continuous integration I read 10 years ago that had some cool diagrams. And honestly, when I quickly just did a little, I don't use Google, I use Ecosia. But I did a little Ecosia search for CI branching strategies. This Perforce document showed up. So this is not me endorsing them. It's just ironically that was what I pulled up to look for to see if there was a good diagram. And then Angela mentioned Perforce. So There we go. There it is. Right. So what's next, right? I think we can talk about what's next. Further questions? I don't think there were questions.
No, we're good.
Hell yeah. I mean, heck yeah. I did not just say that. It's okay. It's YouTube. So what's next? I have to kind of figure out the schedule a little bit, but basic topics. I'm hoping that we can get someone on from the RHEL team to talk about how RHEL is packaged and delivered. That'd be really cool. So I've been reaching out to some folks. We are going to get somebody from the Kubernetes community to come on and talk about Prow. I'm working on the dates for that. She used to be at Red Hat. I'm not going to spoil her name, but some people may know. She used to be at Red Hat. She's not anymore. And now she's I forget which SIG she leads in the Kubernetes community, but she's off doing cool things there. And so she knows all about Prow. She is in India, though. So what we'll have to do is actually, we're going to have to do a special streaming time to be able to capture her. And this might be a thing that we have to do to get some really neat experts in these fields, is change our streaming time a little bit. So keep an eye on when I post the episodes to the calendar. I actually will change them. So our public calendar on our streaming calendar will get updated based on what's going to actually happen. And I will post it on LinkedIn, and Johnny will probably post it on Twitter. And because I forget Twitter exists sometimes. I literally only use it for this, and I still forget that it's there. Yeah, and so, is it actually even still called Twitter? I think we keep asking this, and I still don't know.
I don't know. I think it's X, but I keep calling it Twitter. So
I don't. Anyway, various social media. I do have Blue Skies. I will try to be using it more. If you follow me on Twitter, I did post my Blue Skies profile link in there, I think, so that you can follow it, and then I'll try to actually remember to use this. But yeah, so I will be trying to do my best to communicate the changes for the special episode times. And I had no idea you were in Tokyo maybe you told me this once before, our Hope 9, but I had no idea. I appreciate you for showing up as many times as you've shown up, like so much more.
Yeah.
Right now. So yes, we're gonna potentially dance the times around a little bit so that we can get some pretty cool people onto the stream to talk about some pretty cool topics. That's really what I'm getting at. And I will communicate the change. Try to do it a little bit faster than I've been kind of doing it. I kind of lazily post like what the episode is like the day before because the date times haven't changed. You guys know when to be here. Yeah. But yeah, for these special episodes, I will be communicating as rapidly as I can when it's all locked in so that folks can adjust the schedule. Or a lot of people watch this on a delay and catch the recording later. And I appreciate them too, because I never know who they are. And then suddenly somebody will send me a message and be like, oh yeah, I watch this regularly. On this particular episode, when I watched it, I saw this and that was like really cool. And I'm like, I had no idea you were a viewer. Thank you. Oh, okay. You're normally in Europe. So 9 p.m. is not easier. That does make sense.
Yeah.
I actually don't know who our Hope 9 is. I think they might be a Red Hatter. I don't really know for sure.
No.
We don't need to know who everybody is. It's totally fine. Anyway, so yeah, look, keep an eye out. If you already follow me, great. If you don't follow me, I'm sorry. Look for the calendar events to move. To email me, message me, LinkedIn message me, whatever. If you're curious about when and what the X episode is going to be and when it's going to be. And you haven't seen anything, feel free to harass me and I will tell you.
And you can like and subscribe. And
that really helps.
Notifications. Yeah.
I forgot about that. If you like and subscribe, it tells you when I post the episode.
Dude, I do this all the time and I always forget to say that. So yes, I think Stephanie might actually be proud. Yeah.
I think Stephanie is really proud of you right now. I'm really proud of you right now.
It just happened. I don't even know. I just blacked out. Yeah, it's weird. So.
I think we still have a little auto caption that's supposed to we're supposed to remember to hit every now and again.
Let me see.
Oh no, it's not there.
Oh, is it yeah. So if I type the wrong one, it still shows up in chat. So let me go find it. I think it's.
We're overtime anyway. Like we can end this anytime.
Okay. But our Hope 9's not a Red Hatter. He's a consultant, I think. But he's awesome. He's on the Ask an OpenShift admin live stream all the time. So.
Wow, I think you're like one of 3 people who I know is a customer who watches this. Do you know how happy it makes me to have actual customers here? You have no idea. I'm so happy you're here.
It's good, right? I mean, it's and that's I think I wish it was easier for us to bring customers on or even other partners and stuff like that. I mean, it's not bad for partners, but to bring customers on. Because come online, come tell us about your complaints, right? Come, maybe not like the super crazy complaints, where they're dropping bows on everybody, but hey, I struggled with this, but I got to figure it out, and here's how we did it, because we're operating in a different world. So. Yeah,
100%. That would be super cool. Yeah, I love it if customers want to try to come on. It definitely is a challenge. I reached out through 3 levels of proxy to a customer to ask if they could come on and talk about something pretty cool that they're doing. And they're basically like, we would love to. Legal says no. I was so sad. I was like, I understand. But yeah, if customers want to come on and talk about how they're using things and what they're doing, I mean, we are super here for it. I'll even interrupt like a mini series of things to accommodate your schedules. So feel free to reach out about that. We're just going to have to our legal will say yes if a waiver is signed. It just depends on your legal. So that is that. Great. So join us back in 2 weeks for this new thing. And look for the communications from me about what it will be and when. And until then, like I always say, choose your technical debt wisely. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
See ya.
Bye-bye.